Let's start with the very strange dynamic this afternoon and for much of this week. So we had the South Africans revealing 11 positive cases. The game against the Bulls this Saturday cancelled. They have positive cases. And then the Lions this lunchtime revealing one positive case. Subsequently, that turned out to be two. There are 12 members of the camp isolating, 8 of them players. I mean, we talked at the start of this tour about a very stark backdrop, and there was maybe a hope that the biosecure bubbles would be secure. They're most certainly not. This isn't worst case scenario we're at here, but we're a long way off best case.
Yeah, and it was borderline ridiculous at one point today, not knowing whether this game was going to go ahead. We heard from Ian Henderson there saying, 15 minutes before they left the hotel, they only confirmed that the game was going to go ahead. And there doesn't need to be a huge amount of cases to have a really massive impact on games and have them called off. As you said, only 2 positive tests in the camp, 1 player, 1 management. You count in close contacts, and you're in the situation that we were today. Well, 1, the match was nearly called off. 2, there was only 1 back on the bench. And you can imagine if there was those 2 cases were 2 prop forwards and their close contacts were prop forwards, then this game isn't going ahead, and the one on Saturday isn't going ahead in any form either. So there was always a high risk with this tour, and it's proven to be the case.
Whatever about the warm-up matches, Alan, I mean, there's now the distinct possibility, you would have to say, in a very real way. I mean, there was always that distinct possibility anyway, but there's now, I mean, we've seen it here in concrete terms with the various camps and their positives of, morning of the first or second test against South Africa, and who knows what could happen.
Yeah, it was, I suppose when the tour squad was announced, I think there was optimism that things were going to get better. South Africa had gone back into level 4 lockdown a couple of weeks ago. The situation is bad there. Both sets of players are fully vaccinated. So, and what I've been told myself today was that nobody is sick. So that's a good thing. But it's transmitting this to other people outside of their bubbles and all that kind of stuff. And it's very difficult because I think Ian Henderson is trying to allude to what a day is like when you have that kind of situation. Shane and I would both know you have a routine, you have a structure. Like there was 8 guys who were supposed to be involved today when the team was named on Monday. They're gone out of their group. And guys who thought they were having a relaxing week, they might have been doing fitness and weights on Monday and maybe weights and fitness yesterday to try and get a bit of an early hit during the week. Suddenly they're propelled into the team. So the opposition weren't good. And they had the luxury of that situation, but very disruptive for them. And it's a worrying situation, given, as you say, the tests in a couple of weeks. Yeah. Will this get worse? Will it get better? Will they be able to control it? Should it be happening at all?
Well, there must be a temptation now, Shane, to maybe get down to Cape Town. And I suspect they'll be talking about maybe just calling off the warm-up games and let's just try and protect the tests. Although I'm sure TV money comes into it and various factors come into it. But you've got to think all sorts of contingency plans now are on the table in a real way here.
Yeah, and a lot of the reasons for having the warm-up games are now, in effect gone or are not as valid as they were. Yes, the warm-up games are warm-up for the test, but they're more than that on a Lions series. They're bringing something to those individual areas throughout the countries and the different nations that the Lions tour. And when there's nobody at those games, it's just not the same atmosphere. And we saw that today. A Sharks team that was shorn of their Springboks without the support of a crowd, but really no match at all for the Lions today. And the atmosphere wasn't there. It did feel very much like a trial game. And so while those trial games are ongoing, is there a real benefit in doing them if there's a potential that the actual test series is going to be compromised? And listen, the Springboks are having their preparation disrupted as well. So this is a very unique situation, and I think you can't look at what's gone on in other tours. What is the Lions all about? I think you have to assess it on the best information that we have at the moment. The idea of being able to select the best Lions team based on these games and how players perform, that's almost out the window. We've got guys who've played 3 games on the trot. We've got other guys who are completely undercooked. Some are going to be overcooked. As Alan said there, there's, how they're balancing their training versus against match time when you don't know whether you're going to play in the match or not, or even the match is going to be on. Like this Saturday, we've got a game coming up. We're not really sure. We know it's not going to be against the Bulls, but I hear they're looking for another opponent. Who that might be, we're yet to find out. So it's it is a tour unlike any other. I think the players have accepted that. We need to accept it as, I suppose, as fans and commentators, and ultimately, if we can get games, great. If we can protect the series, the most important thing, and any way we can get to that, I think we should do.
I mean, we're fretting here about the Lions' South African preparations out the window here.
I was just going to say it's to Shane as well. Like, it's an uneven playing field, because even if these warm-up games continue, and the South Africans, who are they going to play? How are they going to get some match time? We were chatting about this before. You go a couple of months without matches in your international teams, but you're playing club games and you're playing matches, and you've come off a November series and you then play Six Nations the end of January. So it's not a long period away. These guys haven't played. They've played one game now against Georgia last week. Not a lot they can get out of that. Their game this weekend is off. Where do they go to from here? Yeah. Like, do we want to see a Lions series in a couple of weeks? We'd love the Lions to win it for sure. But South Africa not being it, we want both sides to be at their best. We want it helter-skelter. There's no crowds there, but we want the two best teams possible out there. We don't want a South African team that are really undercooked, and we're talking about it afterwards that it's a pity. Maybe they'll do okay and maybe they'll be fine. They have a lot of world-class players and they are the world champions. But, the Lions get a load of games and South Africa don't. It's totally uneven then. So we don't want to see that. Look, we should be thankful we have the rugby, and, these speed bumps along the way are going to happen, and maybe things will calm a little bit now. And as you say, I think the whole lot should be taken to Cape Town. Take that risk away and try and, come up with a contingency plan. I'm sure they're discussing that and looking at that.
I'm sure they are. I'd say everything's on the table. Shane, just one last quick one. Curious to get your thoughts. There's some talk of the Bulls match, which was due to be on this Saturday, being moved maybe to midweek after the first test, so between the first and second test. What level of enthusiasm would there be on the Lions' part for that, do you think?
I don't think they'd want it, because these matches, they're used to find out who's going to be in the test team, find out combinations, get players playing time. If you haven't done that by the first test, a midweek game in between the first and the second test isn't going to help you there. Someone performs well in that game, what are you going to do? Ask them to double up into a really aggressive physical test match 3-4 days later. So I don't think that's of huge benefit. I'm not sure if they necessarily want to have this game on the Saturday, given if it is rearranged, no matter who the opposition is, because of the fact that they are going to have so many players that have played quite a number of games, and then other players that may not be able to play because they're in the subject to quarantine. So it is challenging for them. But on Alan's point, I do think that these sort of matches are kind of unfair anyway. It's unfair that that the Lions go down to a tour away from home, their scratch team put together. In this instance, it's unfair that South Africa aren't getting game time, but it kind of still works itself out, and I would still really be interested in watching those test matches to see how it unfolds and how each of those teams deal with the definite hardships that they're going to be placed under, in a sporting sense, I suppose.